Hello and welcome to Drive and Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into this week's movie, I'm going to talk to you about our Patreon. Over on patreon.com/driveindoublefeaturpodcast, we have a lot of mini episodes where we just talk about off-the-cuff fun movie conversations. And if you want to support the show and see more content from us, you can check us out over there. But moving into this Tuesday edition, it's a big week. It's another big week upon us, and we're getting started with it with James Bond, with From Russia with Love from 1963, directed by Terrence Young. The second James Bond movie, and probably one of the most famous James Bond movies, at least in name. From Russia with Love is just iconic. And I think I said that a billion times the last episode, and I'm ready to say it a billion more times. So
it's like those YouTube videos. It's like James Bond being iconic for 5 minutes and 45 seconds.
Yeah. Except here, it's just the whole movie. But yeah, no, it really, From Russia with Love, it's a good movie, and I actually want to. Every episode, I want to get a ranking started. So how does this fare against Dr. No? Do you like it more or do you like it less?
We're going to do this every episode, huh?
I thought it would be something fun.
Gosh, that's tough.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going with my gut. I'm saying I like Dr. No better.
Hey, me too. So yeah, that's, I totally agree. From Russia with Love is a good movie, but there's just something that Dr. No has that this one doesn't quite meet, but it's still a really solid movie, and I think it will rank up there with the greats towards the end. Yeah. So what's your experience with I'm sure you've seen From Russia with Love before, right?
Yeah, this is like my 5th or 6th time seeing it. So
okay, so you're pretty you know what's going on.
Yeah, well, now that I'm older and I'm hopefully a little more smart than I was when I was younger, I was like, oh, now I'm putting the pieces. But my dad showed me this one very young too, and I've seen it more than once with him. So it's really good. I mean, Sean Connery doing this thing. I feel like he showed a lot more personality in the first one. Like you got to see him do a lot more. I mean, he does have his moments in this one, but I don't know. I really liked him in the first one.
Yeah, I feel like Dr. No, for me, has a little bit more of the zaniness that I'd want from James Bond. Not too much, but From Russia with Love is like surprisingly grounded. You know, it has its weird moments. It's the first time James Bond gets like a gadget, but it still feels pretty grounded and very dry. You know, there's not a lot of huge set pieces.
This is like full on like spy movie, like espionage playing off both sides. And I mean, because the whole plot of this one is Spectre trying to get the Soviet Union and UK to bat it out against each other, and then they can kind of just swoop in and conquer both of them.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it's based off of a lot of history. At least the book is by Ian Fleming, because Ian Fleming, I guess, knew a lot of like government secrets and like this whole Lecter device, which we'll get into, based off a real decoder. So it definitely feels like it has those deep connections. It's definitely a Cold War picture. Whole lot about Russia, America, and the UK. Well, not really America, but Russia and the UK. But yeah, and I guess this is based off of what was considered at the time the best James Bond novel. I guess it never really got success, but From Russia with Love, it was the first time like it really was a success. And what's funny is James Bond dies at the end of it, From Russia with Love, the book. Come to find out, spoilers, because he wanted to kill off his character. But you know that didn't. And he never came happen. Back. Yeah, it never came back. There was no other ones.
Yeah, I remember one fact I read is that JFK at the time was actually really loved From Russia with Love. Like that was like on his top 10 best books list.
Nice. Okay. Interesting. I wish I had the time to read these books as well to go through these because I think that would be fun, but I don't have the time for that. But I guess getting into the movie, I feel like you get to see a lot more of the James Bond formula kind of coming together in this one. It's the first time we get to see an intro before the title sequence. And I forgot about this intro. I
Mhm.
seriously was like, I looked at James Bond and I was like, why is he so gross looking? He looks like pasty. And it's a guy in a James Bond mask. I kind of connected the pieces after, but I was like, dang, Sean's looking a little gross.
Yeah, I was always wondering like how audiences reacted to this opening. Like when they see James
Yeah.
Bond dying in the first minute, like what? Like, but they said so like that scene originally they shot it like Terrence Young shot that scene where when they took the guy's mask off, the guy
Mhm.
didn't have a mustache on, and like the guy like they had gotten to do a stand-in for Sean Connery actually looked like Sean Connery, so people thought like they took off a James Bond mask and James Bond was underneath it.
That'd be a funny
So
reveal.
so they had to like reshoot the whole scene and put a mustache on the guy.
Yeah, which is funny, and I love that. It seemed like there's a lot of editing tricks. For I watched it behind the scenes. I'm sure you did too. Where they talked about just reusing footage, reversing footage to get things right. It seemed like there's a lot of issues in filming, but they made it all right. Um,
Yeah. That they said like this whole movie, there was all kinds of different complications leading up to this, and that they said like on the behind the scenes one I watched, they said like the editor Peter Hunt was like the real hero of this movie, where he just like
yeah,
saved it in editing.
yeah. It's one of those magic movies, I guess, where the editor is the real hero that you don't see. Um, yeah, and I mean, I think I didn't notice any of this stuff when I watched it, so I guess that's a big plus. That means a lot. But the title sequence here, because I just want to go over them for every movie. This one's got the classic projection over female bodies, specifically a belly dancer. And, it is what it is. I'm not out here like surprised by it, but it's that 1963 idea of like this is like pushing boundaries, which I find interesting.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, they go for like a classic Bond song, and
Yeah,
it's still nothing. It still doesn't have any lyrics. This one doesn't have any lyrics. The other one at least had three blind mice, but
yeah, yeah.
but
They opted for an instrumental version of the song made for this.
right.
Yeah,
But but it's not bad. I mean, it's just kind of like a precursor of what's to come.
yeah, exactly. Where it's the building blocks there, and I didn't remember this movie very much at all this time after watching it. I just remember the first time I watched it, I was a little confused by it. I felt a little bit better about it this time around. But James Bond doesn't show up for a while, and I think that's definitely why they put him in the beginning because he's kind of gone for the first 15, 20 minutes. It's about the villains and the setup for that. Because the villains just want the villains are Spectre of oh my
Oh,
god, oh who knew.
well, but I do like the characters they've chosen for this. I
Yeah.
mean, like the villains in there, I really like the characters that they chose. So it
Mhm.
was well, I mean, you start getting a little peek at Blofeld a little bit.
Yeah.
It's they don't show what he looks like. You just see him like petting a cat. Not,
Classic
and
Doctor Evil.
yeah, in fact, and then there's Kleb, the woman that was a the mole for in the Soviet Union branch. Like she was being like a double agent for the Soviet Union, but actually working for Spectre.
Hmm.
And her character, like you see her in like the Austin Powers movies when they
Yeah.
did the Frau Barbissina or whatever. So
Yeah, I love watching these movies because I watched Austin Powers before I did James Bond. So it's almost like it gives me a new perspective on those movies and how well done of parodies they are.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, the guy who played Blofeld, you know, there was the doctor from the not the doctor from Doctor No, but the guy that James Bond shoots in Doctor No.
Really? I didn't know that.
He plays Blofeld, like that's his hand stroking the cat. So
that's pretty cool, actually. I like that. I do love this cast that they do get for the villains.
No, I was gonna say, did you realize who? So that it chose one Kromstein, which is this guy playing chess. Did you know who he was? Do you remember him?
So he looked so familiar. He looked like crazy familiar, but I couldn't put it together. Who is it?
You want me to tell you?
Yeah, just tell me.
I want to be a monster.
Oh my God, that is him. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay.
I know what it means to be a monster.
I guess for the listeners, back in the, maybe, that's a long time, a lot of episodes ago.
Yeah, we covered it on a previous drive-in double feature episode. He's Mr. Boogaloo from the Apple.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I knew this guy looked familiar. I was staring at him in the face, like he's in something. Love it. He's good. All three of them are really good. I think he's good, and especially oh God, what's her name again?
Cleb. The girl plays. Yeah, she's a former. She was an Oscar nominee before this movie too.
Yeah, she was an Oscar nominee, and she's really good as this. Just has this like really sinister energy, which I guess was not a thing in like outside of the movie. I guess she was a really nice older lady, but I don't know. She's sinister. I like it, and I guess. Go on.
No, I was just gonna. I honestly, I wanted more scenes with them. If they could have been like the primary antagonist, but really like. The primary antagonist in this movie is Robert Shaw's character, Grant, who is an Irish assassin that's hired by Spectre to kill Bond, and he gives a good performance in this one too.
Yeah, I agree. I think he does it really well. He once again just has a really good presence. I love the intro of him getting punched. I think that's awesome. Where she it's like, all right, because he didn't react to a punch to the gut. I think it would have been even better if it like broke her hand when she punched him or something. But it's okay.
No, she's got tough hands.
Yeah, but yeah, this all gets set up, and then we finally see Sean Connery. You know what he's doing? He's having sex, of course, or no, I guess not having sex, but he, it's risque. He's caressing, kissing, doing it all.
But he's letting you know what's gonna happen.
Yes, yeah, constantly. And with the woman from the first movie, and I guess she was supposed to be a reoccurring character, and no, she never comes back after this one.
Can you imagine if James Bond like had a girlfriend like that?
It just doesn't work. But see, if he had a girlfriend, and then the way he really like flirts with Moneypenny, and you could like the rest of it's part of the job. But I don't know. It's not how James Bond works. But I do love the scene where Moneypenny calls and the woman's complaining in the background, and Sean Connery's just like, shut up, we'll talk about this later.
He slaps her hand.
Yeah, slaps her. I love the sound effect. It's like a loud like her hand away.
Yeah, he smacks her real good.
Which Sean Connery loves doing. So
yeah, we'll talk about that later maybe. But but no, the scene where I like that scene a lot though, because they do like the little bit at the end with the same thing they did in Doctor No, and they're like, "You need to get over here really quickly, James." And he was like, "All right, I'm on my way." And then she's like, "Are you sure about that?" And he's like, "Almost right away."
Give me 2 minutes, boys. I'll be right back. But no, I like that. And then we finally get back to the office. Moneypenny's back. Emma's back, but we actually get to meet Q for the first time. And Bond gets his first gadget, and it's nothing compared to what we get. It's just a briefcase that can explode. Like, nothing too crazy, but it's a fun intro to that.
Well, yeah, and we should note too, that it does star Desmond Llewellyn, who is the person that's in the most Bond movies, and he stars in the Bond movies all the way up until, I believe, the Pierce Brosnan era.
I think one of the Pierce Brosnan, if not the last one.
I think.
No, that's right. John Cleese comes in at a certain point.
Yeah, John Cleese comes in at, I think, at World Is Not Enough or something. But
gotcha.
Anyway, he plays a real common character, but this is just kind of like his very first appearance, and you'll see him a lot in later movies.
Yeah, and it'll get a little crazier from here on out. Trying to think what happens next. I mean, it's definitely mirrors Dr. No. As soon as this scene is over, he lands back. He lands in
Istanbul.
Istanbul, yeah,
right. And he goes to the embassy, I believe, where he meets. I can't remember the character's name, but
Karim Bey.
Karim Bey, yeah, that's it. And that guy is played by Pedro Armadilles. I'm sorry, but Pedro. I'm just going to say Pedro. But anyway, he was in this movie. He got this job thanks to John Ford.
Oh, really? I love that.
Yeah, because he was in a lot of John Ford's movies where he was, like as a Mexican soldier or whatever. And this one that he called up Terrence Young. John Ford called up Terrence Young, but hey, you got a part for my buddy here. and
hey, to be very honest with you, I think Karim Bey is probably one of the best parts of this movie. I really like this character. I think if one thing's going to stand out for me from this movie, it's probably him. Probably as a side character. Does a really good job. He's just really likable.
Yeah, he's almost in the entire movie. I mean, he probably like 3/4 of it. Like when they're on the train, like that's he spoiler, he dies on the train by Robert Shaw's character. But the actor though, so it's actually a really sad story with him. He was in this movie, and while he was working on this movie, they said he was real irritable and like he wasn't really feeling good, so they took him to the doctor, and he found out he had cancer and it was inoperable, and they didn't really give him much of a long shelf life, and he was like begging to like, don't fire me from this movie. I have to make sure my wife and family has like financial security. So Terrence Young, I mean, he didn't want to lose him, so they basically they reshot all the scenes like that they needed to for him in a 3-week period. And they just said like he was so tired and weak by the end of it. Like, he was there, like he just looked like real sick like towards the end. And they said like he would have to like hobble like in between scenes. Like he was just so weak. And before this movie came out, he did pass away. So he didn't even get to see this movie being released, but he does leave his mark as a classic Bond character.
Yeah, exactly. Like all of that, where he said he was weak behind the scenes. I don't think you really can see it while filming. I really think he was giving it his all during all of these scenes. Sean Connery and him have really good chemistry. I think that's what I like about it.
Yeah, I really like him because he says he's got like an infinite amount of sons. And he's just like, oh, that chauffeur, I mean, he seems like a nice guy. He's like, oh, yes, he better. He's my son. And then, like, they're like, oh, yeah, the only one you could trust is your bloodline. And so, like, everybody that works for him is his son. And I just think I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, it's a funny gag. Another one that I thought was pretty funny was whenever he was sitting in his chair, and he just has a woman with him in there, and the woman's like, oh, come back to bed, can you come over here and love me? And he's like, no, stop, shut up. I'm doing something here. And I think he's just like reading the paper, but that saved his life, so from assassination.
I like that scene too, like you said, because she's kind of like, trying to get him to get up and go to the bedroom with her, and then finally he's just like, he gets so like annoyed, he's just like, we gotta go hit the salt mines or whatever. Like he's like gonna go work or whatever.
Yeah, some backbreaking work.
Yeah, so that one was funny. One last thing I did want to note. So, like I said, he did have cancer. Do you know that he worked on that movie, The Conqueror, which that's that movie. That's the Genghis Khan movie with John Wayne, where they ended up working on all those like that nuclear testing site, and where everybody pretty much like almost everybody from that movie had cancer of some form.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was just like a cursed movie.
So he was one of the cast members in that movie. So that might play into it. But he was a well-known Mexican star, and he had did a lot of Hollywood movies too. So good career, though.
No, great career, and I'm sure we'll visit again. Heck, The Conqueror is on my list to do one day.
Oh, that would be something.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, James Bond meets up with him. It's kind of a fun thing. Another great scene is when they go down to spy on the Russians, and Green Bay has like a submarine scope installed in the sewers so he can spy on the Russians. It's such a bizarre, like out there, like idea, but I don't know. I guess I didn't question it until the second time I watched it. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird.
Well, yeah, and they say like the dynamic between them and Russia is that they pretty much tell Russia like all their movements, so that way they always know where Russia is, like that. Like when they like, oh yeah, we always have like anytime we're out driving around, we have a Russian car following us because we told them or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got like a whole, like they're all in like the catacombs and everything. He has to take like a little like gondola to get to it.
Fun fact about that scene that I read about was that, do you remember there's like a half-second shot of rats swimming in that scene?
Yeah.
I guess that was in the book. And Terrence Young fought to get that into the movie, but they couldn't get it there. They had to go to a different country, Spain, film it there, and put it into the movie. And I kid you not, that's Ian Fleming's favorite thing about this movie is that he wrote about rats in the sewers, and he was glad that they got put in the movie. Such a weird thing to take out of this movie.
I know. Well, I mean, like even if you chop that scene out, it wouldn't take away from anything, I don't think. But
literally adds nothing. I didn't even know it existed, honestly, until I watched the behind the scenes, then watched it a second time, and was like, oh, okay. You know, like there it is. There's one scene I don't think I love it, and I'm going to use the terminology the movie has, and they go to a gypsy camp, and I think this is a part in the movie for me that kind of slows down a lot. I don't love this part of the movie.
Well, there's like a whole subsection where Kareem believes that he's like there's an assassin out to get him, but really it's like Shaw like trying to play both sides type of thing, like trying to get like each side to attack each other. I like. When I think of From Russia with Love, though, I'm going to have to disagree with you a little bit. I think of this scene in particular because I just, when you say From Russia with Love, I always remember the scene like with the carriages that they had there, like the carts, and then the two women fighting in the middle of the camp. I immediately think of this scene when I think of From Russia with Love. Like that's what I associate this movie with.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, for me, it's the train scenes. I always think about the Orient Express. I don't know. There's something about this. I mean, there's funny bits because it ends with a big action scene really far out and people get shot up. And James Bond is surrounded, and then this person from Spectre who's trying to keep James Bond alive this whole time shoots the people around James Bond, and he kind of gives this look of like, where'd everybody go? Everybody's dead. I do love that moment.
It's like that John Travolta meme from Pulp Fiction. It's like,
it's kind of what it is. That's like the start. But no, I mean, I get why, because this scene, I will say, it does stand out against the movie. This is a little, it's definitely different from the rest, because James Bond gets a chance to just kind of chill out, have some drinks, and watch two women fight each other to the death.
Yeah, I don't know. It probably hasn't aged well, but I always think of that for whatever reason. So
no, that's cool.
But I do like the dynamic of like the assassin going after them, and then like they have to follow the assassin, and then later they actually corner like where they think like the Soviet Union assassin is, and it's like they catch him in this big poster of a woman, like, and the woman, like the guy like opens, like, I guess it's like a window or whatever, like a back door or something.
Yeah.
And it looks like the woman's mouth is opening, and he climbs out, and then Kareem shoots him with a sniper, like coming out. And then James Bond's like, she should have kept her mouth closed.
Yeah. So I was lying. This is actually the scene I think about with From Russia with Love. I don't know what it is. I think that line is so funny. It's like, she should have kept her mouth shut. I love it.
Yeah.
And it's just so like silly. That's like the James Bond one line that I want, something like that.
So later we get introduced to the new James Bond girl for this movie, the main girl for this movie, and that's Tatiana Daniela Bianchi, I believe is how you say it, but she's an Italian actress playing a Russian spy.
Yeah, and I guess she was dubbed as well, just like our last Bond girl, which I think it's actually done pretty well. I didn't notice until it was pointed out to me.
Yeah, I watched it and I thought that was her actual voice, and then when I watched the behind the scenes, I was like, oh, okay. And then I rewatched the movie, and I'm like, it looks pretty well synced to me. Like,
yeah. And I really like this Bond girl, mainly because she's set up as like, she's a traitor the whole time, but she actually like really falls hard for James Bond, like really hard for him.
Well, yeah, because originally she is working for Russia, and she's like going under the assumption that she's going to have to fall in love, like just get close to James Bond in order to serve Russia. But really it's Kleb like giving her the word to, hey, you're going to have to hang around this guy. And, if you don't, then we're going to kill you, basically. So even though Kleb had her do it for Spectre reasons, but she didn't know it was a Spectre thing.
She thought she was doing it for Russia the whole time. And then this is all for the Lecter device, which is like a decoder. They don't really explain it all too well. It just seems to be like this device that everybody wants. It's like something like a big deal.
Yeah, they keep mentioning it, and it really doesn't come into play later. Like they don't say like, oh, we have to have this Lecter to decode these messages or whatever.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But no, she's great though, because in the first scenes where she's interacting with James Bond, she like is super lovey-dovey with him. Like it's like, oh, like can we just go back and hang out? Like I only want James. Like, am I better than all those other girls? And he's trying to get her to like record like all this stuff. And there's a really funny scene where he sends M the recording of their conversation, and which I forgot about this line, because she's like, oh, do you remember, like, did you have wild times? She's like, well, there was this one time with him in Tokyo, and quickly shuts it off. He's like, Moneypenny, leave.
Yeah, I love that too. I thought that was like really funny. It was like, Moneypenny, leave. And then Moneypenny leaves, and she's still listening in on the intercom, and he's like, well, Moneypenny, since I know you're in there listening to us, take this down real fast.
Yeah, it was great. So, but yeah, I think she has a lot more personality than Ursula Andress did and Dr. No.
Yeah, I think that's one of the better things about this movie.
Well, yeah, and she, like, because Ursula Andress' character, she's just kind of like an innocent girl in the wrong place at the wrong time type of thing. And this girl, she's actually has a mission. She actually has like a motivation of why she's there and hanging around with James Bond, because she trying to think that she's in love with him, but she actually falls in love with him later. So
yeah,
and then they have like a sex tape scene where they're like, because like, so they go into a hotel and they have sex, and Spectre, Robert Shaw, is just like filming them with a camera, and he's going to use it as blackmail material later.
Yeah, it's so funny. It reminds me of that movie Vacancy, where like, or no, not Vacancy, which that's a similar idea, but crap. There's it's a motel movie with Thor in it that everybody liked.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but
bad times at
Ridgemont High. No, it's Bad Times at the El Royale, right?
That's it. Yeah, there you go.
There's a scene very similar to this where they back out and it's like a two-way mirror looking in the bedroom. And it reminds me exactly of that, actually. It just a funny thing. It does that once again, nothing that really comes into major play later.
No.
Just a one-off thing. And then the end of this movie, I forgot how much train there is. Like, I remember the train, but the whole third act is on the Orient Express. And I do enjoy these scenes. There's some good suspense there. There's some funny bits with James Bond, and it's a pretend honeymoon, and he gives her like all these dresses, which I guess were too risque for the 60s, because he was like, you can't go out looking like that. Pretty much, he's like, you cannot be seen wearing that.
Yeah, they start pretending like they're a married couple, and they're like, oh, like, this is my wife. Like,
yeah, and even Kareem is like, oh, I've never seen a more handsome couple in my life. Got him fake IDs and everything.
Yeah, it was good. So the train sequence, like, this might have been like either in the first time at the train sequence, or it might have been this one, but they said like it was so crowded at that train station, and like they were trying to film, but people were just like, they were like getting in the way, or they wanted the train station to look less crowded, so they had a stuntman go to a nearby building and hang from a balcony, like pretending like he was about to jump.
Oh,
and just for people like, hey, what's that over there? And like they would clear out of the train station.
That's so funny. So would you leave a film shoot to go see somebody jumping off a roof?
I mean, I guess just because I would want to make sure they're okay.
Yeah. You know, also, if a film shoot told me to leave, like, hey, we got to film something, I'd probably be like, all right, I should probably go.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would just want to be there to witness it. I wouldn't like try to get in the way. But
yeah, exactly. But no, I love that James Bond. They talk about this movie like, oh, we don't know if we're gonna keep on with the success, but from the stories, it sounded like people really into it, and I mean, and we know what it became today. So
well, and this movie also has twice the budget that Dr. No had. And that's why this movie is a lot more globe-trotting. He goes to Istanbul and all these other countries when he's out there. And another sequence was when they go and infiltrate the Soviet Union embassy to steal the Lecter, and they explode like the facility, and he steals it from them. What they said they did in that scene was they actually set off like real smoke bombs in that building that they were shooting in, and like the real emergency vehicles showed up, because they're like, oh, we can't afford emergency vehicles to show up, so let's just pretend the building's on fire and they'll show up.
If you did that now, you would that would be no good.
Yeah, I want to make that clear. Highly illegal. Do not do that.
Yeah, that's not okay.
And also, too, it's wasting emergency vehicles, resources, and time that they could be saving an actual life.
For something so small, like, oh, we need emergency vehicles to really show up. Like, you didn't need to. That's not essential. But that's what I love about covering older movies like this. They did some crazy stuff that you definitely couldn't do now.
Definitely not.
No.
But so yeah, going into the train, like you said, they they're supposed to have a rendezvous. Well, Kareem's on the train and one of the assassins is on the train, and they go in there and they think Kareem and the assassin killed each other. But really, it was Robert Shaw who killed an MI6 agent, and now he's impersonating as that guy. And that's kind of where we get into now. And then he meets with James Bond, but Bond, I think, already like knows right away that he's not the right guy.
Yeah, no, I think so.
He does drug her drink. He drugs Tatiana's drink.
Yeah.
And he does know, James Bond does know that. He says it later, but he still lets her drug her for whatever reason.
Yeah, for whatever reason, which is funny because in the last movie, he just got drugged very easily. He just kind of did it. So
James was like, oh, what is this, coffee in a strange building? Yeah, let me drink that.
Yeah, but this time he knows he knows what's going on.
So anyway, he finally confronts him about it, and they have a big fight scene in the train compartment, which this is a really good scene. I mean, they said like this 1 6-minute sequence took like 2 days to shoot, and there was kind of like a lot of behind the scenes stuff on this one where they were choreographing it. And originally, like, Terrence Young was going to have 2 stuntmen do this fight sequence, and I guess to kind of like ruffle the feathers for Sean Connery and Robert Shaw to kind of get them amped up for that scene. But he's like, oh no, we'll just use real stuntmen. They're like, no, we can do the scene. Like, no, we'll just use stuntmen. And they had like the choreographed scene, and they're like, let us do it. And they finally let us do it. And they said in that whole sequence, I think they said there was only one scene where they had to, like, one like tiny shot where they had to get stuntmen in there.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh, that's cool. I like that. You just got to coerce your actors or coerce your director into letting you do all these stunts. And I really like this fight scene. It really does have some really good like energy to it. Well, of course, James Bond is going to win, but I
didn't think so.
You didn't think so? He dies in the book, so
yeah. I mean, he died in the beginning of the movie. Why wouldn't he die at the end?
Yeah, I was really confused by that. Why did he die in the beginning? What happened? But yeah, I mean, and this train scene's long. Kareem Bey dies in a very tragic death. But I do like the line before he dies is like, "I've had a very interesting life. You want me to tell you about it?" And then next thing you know, he's dead in the train with the other guy.
Yeah.
But after all this is kind of I do want to say this reminded me of Hitchcock a lot. This whole final sequence of the movie, just the train, because he loved trains, and then even this ending, because there's a truck, they're in a truck driving away, and there's a helicopter kind of chasing them down, trying to bomb them. It just gave off the vibe.
So actually, it's funny you say that about Hitchcock. So this scene on the train, at least while they were working on the movie, Sean Connery had told Terrence Young, like, oh, like, one of my dreams is being able to do a Hitchcock movie. Like, he's like, I've always wanted to do an Alfred Hitchcock movie. And Terrence Young, I guess, knew Alfred Hitchcock and called him up and was like, same thing with John Ford. He was like, hey, Sean Connery wants to be in one of your movies. You interested? And Alfred Hitchcock's like, sure.
Yeah, and he was in Marnie, right? That's cool. I like that. That's like one of his forgotten movies because I forgot it until right now. It's like, oh yeah, Sean Connery was in one of his movies.
It bombed on initial release, but it's now looked a lot more favorably.
That's cool. I like that. So this whole final sequence happens. They get on a boat, and like there's a giant explosion, which I love. The story behind this is that they accidentally used all the explosives during a test shoot, and it kind of screwed them over a little bit. They had to add a whole extra day of filming to get it down.
Yeah, they said that they used all the explosions, and they're just like, uh-oh. So they had 24 hours to get all these new explosives, and they had to have them all shipped there, like rush delivery, and like so that way they can have it ready to go.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that could only be done in one shot. I mean, this is like really fun, big time action, like James Bond, because he drops all the barrels and the huge explosion. It destroys all the boats. It's a cool set piece. I think it's nice, and it once again a good sign of what's to come. I feel like that's a lot of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much like when they get on the train, and then after he has the fight with Robert Shaw's character, it's all action after that. I mean, it's like straight up action because he has that, and then they immediately steal a truck, and then James Bond has to. They said like they got like a helicopter, and that was Sean Connery actually dodging a helicopter. So like the helicopter was flying real low, and then James Bond would jump out of the way, and that was actually Sean Connery doing that. And then you get the boat sequence, like you just said, and then after that, like they go to the Spectre has a meeting, and Blofeld's like tells, because this was all Kleb's like doing or whatever, and they're like, you failed us, and you think Kleb's gonna die, but Kromstein's character ends up getting killed.
Yeah, I love that, and it's like it was surprising. It surprised me too that he killed him, and with a blade in the shoe with poison in it, and I love it because he's like, 12 seconds to die. We need to make a faster poison. It's just, just diabolical evil.
Yeah, and that's that. And then later, that's Kleb. Like they go to like a hotel, and like it's like the ending from Austin Powers, where they like it's James Bond and Tatiana are like at a hotel, and like they're like lounging in robes and stuff.
Yeah.
And then Kleb shows up, and it's so funny because she's like in this, in the movie she's like in a military outfit, like looking real stern and tough, and then she's like in a maid's outfit, like at the very end of the movie.
Yeah, and she's using the shoe just like in Austin Powers, how a shoe is used. He's trying to kill him with the shoe, and then this one, she's doing the same thing, which is funny. This is in the book. That's how he dies. He accidentally, or not accidentally, she succeeds and stabs him with the foot blade.
Yeah, that'd be a way to end this movie. Can you imagine?
They would have never.
It was too much of a moneymaker. There's no way.
Yeah, exactly. And this movie made $79 million in 1963 on a $3 million budget. That is a success and a half. Like that, they would not end it here. That'd be so stupid.
No, and this movie the series still hasn't even reached its peak yet. It's just going to grow and grow. So
exactly. I mean, heck, Goldfinger, which is the one coming up next, is just as iconic, if not more. And this one got a video game too. For whatever reason, true. This is the one that got a game. I mean, at a certain point, all of them got games, but
it's even weirder that. So I mean, like, because GoldenEye got a video game, but it was around the same time GoldenEye came out, and all the other James Bond games got them like around that same time. But this one, it was made in 2006.
Yeah,
and
40 years later.
40 years later, and they still got Sean Connery to come back and redo the lines, which is crazy.
Yeah, I sent you the video, the making of the game, and Sean Connery is just talking about doing it, and it's not really funny or anything. I just thought it was just a neat thing that they got Sean Connery back. That's probably one of his last roles too, because he quit acting for a while. And yeah, I think that's funny. Looking at gameplay, it looks very different than the movie, though.
It is, but I mean, there's a lot of added stuff in there. But it's just wild to me. They're like, they have all these modern age James Bond movies. They have all the ones to choose from. They're like, let's go with the second Bond film, and let's do it 40 years later.
Yeah, for whatever reason. And I mean, it had my interest peaked. I never played it, but as a kid, I did want to play it. I thought it looked really cool. So, hey,
we might We might have to do a let's play on our Patreon channel. Who knows?
Yeah. If you're interested in that, send us an email. I would definitely. I think that would be a lot of fun to play through that.
Yeah.
But yeah, From Russia with Love. So I guess kind of going over it all, the whole movie. I think it definitely has the hits, right? It hits the right things. It has a really good Bond girl. It has good action. I feel like it's Bond coming together, but I still think something's missing. I still think it's not all completely there. It hasn't completely zinged yet. That's why I feel like Dr. No for me is a better movie, but it's definitely still top shelf Bond.
Well, I mean, it's like Dr. No to me hits a lot more of the James Bond beats that have come to fruition later.
Mm-hmm.
Like they actually they have the secret facility.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. No does like the whole like evil spiel. I'm an evil genius. There's a lot of little intricate traps and things like that. So I mean, there's stuff in there that's like, oh, okay, this is like a Bond movie. And this one, I mean, yeah, it's a James Bond movie, but it doesn't have a lot of the familiar beats that's in there, at least for me, or what I'm remembering at least. But
yeah.
But yeah, it's still a worthy entry in there. It's not my favorite of Sean Connery's. We'll get to that very soon, actually. But
yes, yeah.
But it's definitely up there.
Yeah, it's good. We'll see how it ranks later on when we get further.
So I do have some other notes that I didn't get a chance to say, but like I said, this movie was saved a lot in editing because originally in the book From Russia with Love, it was the Soviet Union that was the main enemy, and Spectre wasn't even a thing in the original book. And so they originally changed it to have like this cat and mouse type of game where it's like Spectre playing off both sides and trying to get that happen. So that was an element that was added into this movie. And like I said, this movie was saved a lot in here, which I think they made a lot of really good choices, because originally it was supposed to go like Kleb was supposed to go to Spectre Island, and she recruits Robert Shaw, and then she was supposed to recruit Tatiana. Then we were supposed to see the chess match with Kromstein, and then they were supposed to meet Blofeld, but it didn't really work because they're like, who is that woman? Like, why is she doing this? Like, what's the main purpose? So then the movie started with the chess match. Then it was them meeting Blofeld, and then it was Kleb doing the Spectre Island and Tatiana recruiting, just to explain why she was doing that stuff. So I'd like little stuff like that is really, really interesting.
Yeah, I think it shows you how a movie can be saved in editing. And it's so bizarre thinking about it when they wrote that they wrote it in that way, because it is confusing. But I mean, just a restructure and you're good to go. So that's cool.
Yeah. And the movie needed a ton of rewrites to it, and they said that, or even the plot, if you can believe it, was like actually a lot more complicated than it was now. And they just said a lot of the dialogue wasn't working. They needed several rewrites. I don't know if you said, but there was like one funny gag that Peter Hunt did to Terrence Young, like when they went to watch the dailies for this movie.
Oh yeah, I love this. Yeah, go ahead.
So like you said, James Bond's briefcase explodes whenever you set it to like a certain setting. And in the scene, like Bond is testing it out. And in the actual movie, he just tests it out and it's fine or whatever. He does it correctly. He's like, and Q's like, don't do it this way, otherwise it's going to explode. And then he edits it. Bond opens the briefcase and it explodes. And he said Terrence Young thought it was really funny. He was laughing a lot, but it was just like a little prank he played on him. Like he edited the movie to look that way. That's good.
I really hope there's no director out there that would just get so angry over such a funny little joke like that. Yeah, I mean, whoever this editor is, we should give him a shout out.
Peter Hunt.
Yeah, Peter Hunt. You really killed it. You did a great job.
And one of the last thing, the two gypsy women, they were both Universal pageant contestants. And actually Tatiana was one too. The lady playing Tatiana, she was one as well. And they said originally like that fight, at the gypsy camp was really heavily choreographed, but then like the day of, Terrence Young just like went up to both of them like, just try to kill each other.
Easy. These directors are really sounding like I guess nefarious or at least devious. There's I don't know, I've heard a lot of these stories where they're just telling actors to just kill each other, murder.
I mean, that for them it was like, who cares about human rights? Let's just get this picture shot. I want it to look good.
This movie's going to be great. I don't care who dies in the process. We didn't talk about the song from Rush with Love because that is the James Bond song here. Forgettable, just because we forgot to talk about it.
I mean, I know it when I hear it, but if I was gonna listen to a Bond song, that's not one that I would listen to.
It kind of just sounds like an Italian like rendition of a song like that's Amore. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
So nothing too special. But
I think that's it for me.
I think that wraps it up.
But big recommend, definitely check it out. Even if check it out. It's an essential Bond movie.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely one of the ones worth watching. Since that closes the book on James Bond, and we'll get back to this soon. We get back to this with a really exciting movie. But speaking of exciting movies, what's coming up on Thursday, Ryan?
Well, it's that time. We're going to go dig back into the Toho well, and we're going to be watching 1966 Ebirah, The Horror of the Deep, and that is going to be on HBO Max, Tubi, YouTube. It's everywhere. I mean, you should have no trouble finding it.
No. And if you want to send us an email, be sure to email us at driveindoublefeaturpodcast@gmail.com and follow us over on Twitter at DIDFpod. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time.
Until next time.